by 2030. And now, Tinubu premised this assertion on the recent statistics that showed a 3.46% GDP growth for the third quarter of 2024. Now, what are the key drivers of Nigeria's GDP growth, and how can the government sustain this growth trajectory?
Well, according to the Bureau of Statistics, the key drivers were in the sector, the agricultural sector, that of the informal sector principally, and of course ICT. Now, that is quite. It's not unexpected, if you ask me. Considering the fact that we did mention, while earlier when we were talking about Labaja's passing, that one thing that he has been a massive response to insurgency, especially in the core northern areas, where we used to have banditry and you have mass sacking of people, rural homesteads where the agriculture is the hub. So definitely you should expect a better yield at the end of the day, and better people engaged in farming. I mean, more people engaged in farming, because there will be a kind of reduction in the threat situation that allows people to be sedentary and stay and work, do their farming and other agricultural businesses. So for me, I think it's a big win for the defense, the military, because you have to be sedentary to practice agriculture. So that's what it means. That is one explanation of that, that other aspect. And definitely, what you have is that especially in the area of the informal sector has employed more people. That you will see more of that in our next analysis. That means that more people are engaged in doing something. So that we should drive up the GDP. The more you are engaged in doing something, the more you generate wealth, the more you pay taxes, and the more there is an upswing of the economic indicators in the country. So that is my take about it. Then, of course, the ICT. There are instances of more investment in within the ICT sector. That is the digital economy. Yeah, that is. So there are more investment in that sector. So that's why you have more people engaged, more people, taking earnings from that particular sector of the economy. So that explains the upsurge in the GDP of the country. And of course, moving towards 1 trillion, has always been a trajectory that Nigeria has been moving towards, except in recent times when we had two successive recessions. The economy suffered two successive recessions in the last 8 years of Muhammadu Buhari. So that was what put a little bit of dampener on the economy. At that time. So what we are seeing is that there is a more, Tinubu, whatever his fault, there has been consistent policy. He has been very consistent about firming up, those indicators, that drive the economy. We are talking about the tax the other time. Then we are talking about the Dangote coming on stream. So definitely those are things that shore up economy. Those are things that bring about investor confidence. Those are the things that drive businesses, that creates more employment. So at the end of the day, you measure that by GDP.
All right. Again, the presidency is, quite ecstatic about this growth in the GDP of the country. Again, I want us to say to the layman, to the ordinary Nigerian, what does this mean for the ordinary Nigerian? And then the president is saying that by 2030, the target is a $1 trillion economy. How realistic is President Bola Tinubu in achieving this $1 trillion economy, and what are the strategies to be adopted to see that the country achieves this focus?
There is first and foremost, for the ordinary man. Ordinarily, when we say that there is a rev up in the revenue and we are heading towards a $1 trillion economy, ordinarily it should mean that Nigerians are better, they are earning better. That is the average Nigerian earns more money, and of course that will improve the quality of life. That the ordinary man on the street earns more money, then there will be quality of life. But often in this part of the world, what we have, we don't have Sometimes you have fantastic figures, but the figures are not organic.
Mm.
What we mean by organic is that you don't see a growth in the average life of the Nigerian. So sometimes you can have a $1 trillion at the end of the day, where it circulates around very few people. So that is one big challenge, that you have in this, especially in a case like Nigeria, where the economic measures are not well are not well defined.
Mm.
So in my estimation, I think that the Nigerian government will have to fashion out a way of making all those things trickle down, a better way of measuring what the average Nigerian man earns, whether he's carried along when you have all this growth that we are talking about. That is some of the things that I think the Nigerian we have to really do as a country. Not just government. I think that the state has to be incorporated in it. And by the way, if I might add this, you know that in most states, the State Bureau of Statistics is not working.
Mm.
It's not working at all. Because sometimes in 2023, I happen to have a talk with this NGO that you have in Kwara State that monitors government spending, and to my utmost chagrin, he said on the last time the Kwara State Bureau of Statistics was really involved in gathering data was 2012, which is quite disheartening. So because of these gaps. Yes, on the surface, at the level, the NBC at the national make do with whatever they can get. Yes, but at the end of the day, what you still have is that it is not properly, the data are not really, it doesn't capture the entire scenario. But of course, the president did say that in 2025 there is going to be a rebasing of the economy, and I sincerely hope that this will definitely answer the problems we are talking about. It would comprehensively explain the GDP to the average earning of Nigeria, and we will see how it goes from there.
All right.
All right. So, what are the potential risks and challenges that could derail Nigeria's economic growth prospects? And how can the government mitigate this risk?
Well, government appears to be mitigating it. We did say that one of the key drivers of the agricultural sector is security. So the moment there is security, because we are largely an agrarian, a farming country. The biggest source of the biggest subsector in the agricultural sector is farming. Cultivation. So, and people need to be sedentary. They need to stay in one place to do that. But the moment there is insurgency, the moment there is insecurity, it drives people away, and of course it will have an effect. So if there can be sustainability within the security architecture, maintaining that is a revving up, the trying to contain the insurgents, winning more people to government side, to be on the side of government, in the fight against insurgency and insecurity in wherever guises, then of course the firming up of policies that will actually allow growth, allow investors to do business. And of course, there are some key, elements within the tax bills that we talked about the other day that is quite exciting, even though there has been a lot of, agitations and fears, expressed by governors. There are some aspects of it that, for me, I think it's a very big plus, especially in the area of, taking low earners away from the payee system, revving up the value-added the company tax, company tax, raising the bar to 50 million and above, and leaving people with earning 25 million to, to enjoy a tax relaxation, So if we continue to have, if that bill comes on, if those bills come on stream as laws, I see a sustainability in it. But we don't know. The governors are very powerful, and there are lots of interests who think that it will be inimical to their own interest. So if there can be an accommodation, then we should think that there will be sustainability in in that dream of having a $1 trillion economy. That is, that I think it is doable. That is if all these factors are considered.
All right. Thank you, Nicholas. And before we just move away from this conversation, one last thing that maybe my colleague also has a question as a follow-up question. I want to ask, now, this achievement that the country recorded in terms of the increments in the GDP rates and all, do you think the private sector is actively involved in this growth? Because if you look at the non-oil performing sectors, agriculture, ICT, trade, manufacturing, crude oil about 5.57%, finance and insurance 5.51%, and real estate at 5.43%. How much of the private sector involvement is responsible for this growth rate that the country recently recorded, and how much of more further participation of the private sector should be involved in the Nigerian economy if we are to sustain this growth?
You see, there was one key point that was mentioned by NBC, and which is that is the
NBS.
Informal sector, that it grew. I wouldn't know whether you saw it in that report. The informal sector does not have the hand of the government in it. So it is called informal because there are no strict, there are no structures and strictures defining them. You are talking of trading, at the sub-average level. You are talking of all these small holdings that you have, family businesses and things like that. So it grew as well. It engaged a lot of people. So that is one aspect of the private sector. Then of course, don't forget that Dangote came on stream fully this year. Mm-hmm. It's a private sector driver. It has started contributing massively into the economy. So you have to give that. Then of course you talked about property, property,
real estate,
investment.
Mm-hmm.
Those are done. Real estate. Real estate. Now that involves mortgages, building, creating accommodations and the rest of them. So that is, principally driven. Of course, you can have mortgage from government. People who earn government salaries and things like that. They can get it going, but it is principally driven by the private sector. So yes. By and large, you have more private sector participation in it, but I think we can have more private sector involvement in all these areas that you have mentioned, if the key indicators are put in place, like I mentioned, the firming up of policies that affect those industry and stringent, monitoring and regulating those policies to ensure that they are being carried out. So the moment you have all those strictures in place, fully in place, what it does is that it drives confidence for people to go into such ventures. So by and large, to a large extent, yes, there have been more participation, but it is still not good enough. We are still not yet there.
All right.
Okay, well, still very closely related. The unemployment rate in Nigeria, recently slowed to 4.3% in the second quarter of 2024, from 5.3% recorded in the first quarter. Now, what factors contributed to the decline in Nigeria's unemployment rate, and are these factors sustainable in the long term?
Well, I think in the short time, yes. In the long time, that is still debatable. Now, if you over the last 1 year, you see a lot of pumping of palliatives and funding for support of small businesses. You understand? When you do that, you will be shocked at what ordinary 10,000 naira can do to somebody who wants to start a small business. You understand? So you'll be having more of that, especially by some state governments, especially in Kwara State. You see a lot of like Kwarapreneur, pumping out money to people who want to do business and things like that, all the small traders and things like that. So definitely with such palliatives, what you are saying is those palliatives, that's the result of those palliatives coming from federal government. It reduces the agitation, it reduces stress, it creates, with money, then you can create a business, you can do certain things. So that is what you are saying. That is what led to the slowdown of that economy. You see, the thing is that before you have to create employment for people to tax them. That has been the argument of some people, that you don't just tax without creating employment. You create employment for, so, and that is what I see Tinubu trying to do, is to create more of those avenues for people to do jobs so they can be taxed. So I think to a large extent that is what reduced, the unemployment rate that we are talking about.
All right. That also should involve the activities or the coming on board of private sectors into it. Again, still more related to my previous question on the growth recorded in the economy. Now, the factors. This is saying something to private investors and all, but again. Should some of these policies of government be more favorable so that more private sectors can come into the economy and then further reduce the unemployment rate? Or how do you think government can sustain this decline in unemployment rates?
The best way has always been to build up entrepreneurs. You see, there is a saying by, I think it was Abraham Lincoln, that where when you weaken the strong, then everybody becomes weak. But when you empower the strong strong can empower the weak. You understand? So you see, that is why that is the mainstay of the American economy, American government. They build entrepreneurs, they build mega industries within the private sector, because the moment they create, then there will be need for employment. There will be need to employ people. So, yes, like there is a reduction in unemployment, like we earlier adverted to, but it is, like I said, it's in the short term. The long-term move, the long-term strategy is to build people who create jobs. Go to small, what is the small holdings, the small and medium scale enterprises. You must firm it up. It must be firmed up. The moment you firm them up, they create more jobs for people. If, for instance, you create a small holding, that can take 10 people there, but because you have a firm policy and a funding process, that gives it more leverage, then it can include, that is, it can expand its business to take 25 more people. So that is in the long term. That is more in the long time. So the more you empower the strong, the more those strong empower the weak. So that's how the economy should go. That is the long term. For me, that is the long term strategy that the federal government and the state government must employ. To continue to sustain the economic growth that we have seen. This impressive quarterly report that we see. So in the days ahead, with some of the policies that I'm seeing coming out, from the federal government, all the bilateral agreements that have been signed, here and there, I see the possibility of, capturing more people, more of these entrepreneurs, small-scale businesses into the federal government, policy, so as to create more jobs for people who are on the street, the ordinary man on the street.
Thank you a lot, Nicholas.
Let me just ask this before we round off on this, conversation about stuff. How does the informal sector, that accounts for a significant portion of Nigeria's economy, factor into this unemployment statistics? And what implications does this have for policy making?
You see, the informal sector are those people that are not captured, firmly within the structure of, the people you call, that is the known businesses that are captured, by government regulatory body like CAC and the rest of them. You understand? You have people like Femtech, people like even Araba Radio. Those are within the formal sector. They formally employ people. They formally engage people. You understand? But you have the traders, principally the farmers, in the artisans. Those are in the informal sector. So now the thing is this. There is a way you can empower that informal sector, create a formal structure for it, so that they can be captured, so that fundings can go to them, they can expand their business, and they become your small and medium scale enterprises. They are captured for the purpose of taxing and for the purpose of measuring the economy. So that is how the informal sector is. You understand? It is not yet, is not properly linked. What we just assume, because normally when they capture the informal people, what they just do is they measure the activities within that sector. So that is how they get it, but it is not a clear-cut thing. So yes, invariably it affects the economy, but how it affects the economy is not clearly defined. But in other more developed economies, what they do is they try to create structures by which they can measure them. That is what is sadly lacking in Nigeria, and that is what I think that government should be more focused on, especially at the state and local government level. Especially as we try to rev up, firm up this local government autonomy. Principally, I think the local government economy should look into that sector. It should be their principal, concern. If we must have a viable local government, government in place, a third tier of government in place.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move away from this conversation and move to Edo State. Right. The situation with the chief press secretary to the governor Monday, Okpebolo Fred Itwa, says almost 500 vehicles belonging to the Edo State government are still missing.
How do you react to that? And again, does this appear that the administration of His Excellency Monday Okpebolo is on a streak of fighting corruption and then recovering government properties and all? And then what spots is this also putting a spotlight on the previous administration of Governor Godwin Obaseki? And then exactly what he says: 500 vehicles belonging to governments is unaccounted for.
Oh well, of course that is not surprising, and it's not a new thing. If you recall, in 2015, immediately Nyesom Wike took over, government. He had that same concern. You understand? He had that same concern, and he went after some commissioners and took the government vehicles from them. Then, of course, if you recall, there was this ding dong between a former IG Arase and Idris Ibrahim Potum, the man who took over from him. To the effect that there are some vehicles missing. It became it became an issue between the retired IG and So you see, the thing is this, in terms of government property, it is especially for politicians and people who were hired. Public officers. I'm talking of people who, political office holders hire to be in place. They are very loose about managing government property. To them, when they are given a car, it's like a personal belonging. It's like their own payoff. So definitely, sometimes you need very strong measures to recover what actually belongs to government. So that is not surprising. I see that happening a great deal. And in fact, for the next 1 or 2 months, we are going to be talking about this often and often again. So, but my advice is that the governor should not let this distract him. He should not let it distract him at all. And that isn't the only thing he has that he has done, which has flagged some attention. Really, if you recall, he did reverse some policies that concerns the traditional monarch. You understand? And those are some of the things that some people might that might raise a bit of concern. But really, I think that on the traditional, that is restoring the rights of the Oba. It's a right step at the right time, because the traditional institution of Benin it's like an institution. You don't tamper with it, except you want to create unsavory political tension within the state. But by and large, I think the governor has to be very careful. He has to be very careful about some of these things, because I think most of these things can be managed without noise. so that it will give him time to focus on administration rather than playing politics, the politics of administration. It shouldn't be about the politics of administration. Rather, he should be, concentrating on delivering the dividends of democracy to people.
All right. In that light, I ask this final question, the governor should really concentrate and kick, the ground running, advancing Edo State and taking Edo State to where it should be. But I want to ask you, a lot of people also see it as, so much rot in the past, in the previous administration that, it's not a bad thing if the governor, goes after it. Is this an indication that there's going to be a probe of the past administration in a few minutes?
Oh, he has indicated. Oh, yes, he has indicated that he's going to probe. Don't forget, he did create a committee recently to look into to probe the past administration. He has made it very clear that he's going to do that. So for me, it is welcome that if he can manage it, but he should be very careful that because things like that is like a maze. It's like chasing your tail. So I think he should concentrate on. For me, I think he should concentrate on governance. Even if at all there is going to be, you can create an inquiry. Okay, so amount of money was budgeted. So please, can you come and explain how it was spent and things like that? Not an outright proof, setting up a committee. You have to put on a payroll. So for me, I don't think that is necessary.
Well,
for me,
he did set up a committee a recovery committee for these 500 vehicles. So it does look like the governor is not putting all of his attention into that, or he's not coordinating that. He has a recovery committee set up. But we like the fact that you say, the government of Edo State should concentrate on governance. And then move away from anything that will further distract him. You can join the conversation. Leave us a comment. 0807 777 9927. 0807 777 9927. Well, Nicholas Nwarinoye, thank you a lot for contributing. Thank you for joining us all the way from Oka, Anambra State. And it's the day after the sit-out. So thank you so much. What's the activity like? People are up and about their businesses, I guess. Thank you. Stay safe out there, right?
Of course,
All righty.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, my name is Dayo Adeyemi.
And I'm Danielle Shitta-Bay. Thank you for joining us.
Hey! That time of the year don't reach again, oh! Glow Festival of Joy promo don't land gidigba. And we dey make them happen heavy with bracket prices. Here am now, 5 tier over Toyota Prado.